Yerrrrr.
Take
Oh my
two.
God.
What it do?
It never played the intro. Oh my God. It restarted without playing the
All right,
intro.
let's start it over.
All right. One more time.
Take two. Take two.
Take two. Here we go.
Came here to say who won it from the jump. Came here to say get exactly what you want. Came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yeah, we live, you know. We came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yeah, the sports show.
Yerrrrr.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. That's the sweet sounds. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Yerrr Sports Show, episode 178. I'm the host, Big Baby, aka the soul of R&B. And to my right-hand woman, the queen, 100K Tay. What's going on, sis?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? How we doing?
Doing great. We're doing great. Yo, we're talking off camera, but Sinners?
What a movie.
What a movie.
There's nothing I love more than two Michael B. Jordans in Southern Black culture. Let me tell you,
man,
if you are someone with African American roots and your family comes from the South at any point, it is a must-see movie. Because if you needed to see how your great-grandparents walked this earth back in those times, the set design, the accents, the words, everything, the vernacular was just on point. Like, Ryan Coogler does not miss. I'm a big fan of his work. I'm a big fan of this movie. I thought it was incredible. You know, we were talking about like it does start off slow, but sometimes you have to kind of set the scene. What I really realize about a lot of movies, like they get right to it and then they try to tie things in too late. So the pacing, given the content, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hadn't seen it, but the pacing of the movie made perfect sense. You know, it picks up towards the end. Absolutely. It starts off hot and it ends hot. So I think that, you know, it's one of the best movies I've seen in a while. I'm not even going to hold you. I am a little biased, you know, because I love me some Michael B. Jordan. Two Michael B. Jordans. I was like, just run a...
Anyway.
Run a prayer line, brother. Run a prayer line.
Run a prayer line, yes. Worship and praise. Michael B. Jordan did his thing in the movie. Everybody, all the actors played their parts perfectly. And then looking at the backstory about the Chinese influence there, and seeing a bunch of stories on it. Nobody ever talks about it. I didn't hear about it until like after the movie, and I looked it up and it kept popping up. So I'm like, oh, let me watch some of these things. I did not know. And that's why it made sense where the Chinese people were in the movie. The Asian people were in the movie. So shouts to everybody. Shouts to Ryan Coogler for doing his research. And everybody for doing their research.
Meticulous details. You know, I am a stickler for details.
Yep.
So I don't like to give details, but I like to receive details. I don't like to expand on things ever with anything. That's one of the biggest pain points people have with me, is that I never like to explain anything, but please continue to explain things to me like I'm 5.
Yeah, and that's so it's funny because it translates on the show, right? You'll say, I said what I said. Quick.
I said what I said.
I said what I said. That's the point.
Because me and my sister were debating about this the other day. Mm-hmm. It was like everybody always wants to know the why. Right? Why out of the who, what, when, where, why, out of the 5 W's, everyone always wants to know the why. I am the one odd duck who gives not one fuck about a why. I care about the what. Like, what did you do? I don't even know. I don't care to know the reason. I the why makes no sense because sometimes the why doesn't jive with me. So I'd rather just not hear the why. You did the what, stick with the what.
Hey, live in your what?
Live in your what? Stand on your what?
Yeah.
Because I don't trust me, when you start whatting, I'm not gonna start whining.
Yeah, no, you stay over there with all of that.
Decisions, stand on that. You know, yeah. I've been really crazy about my boundaries. You know, I was in a really weird situation a couple of months ago with someone that was like, anytime, you know, it was a reflection of, you know, anytime you lower your standards, you get everything you deserve.
Absolutely.
Everything you deserve.
Everything you deserve.
And I'm sitting here like, it makes me think, like, I've given the lamest motherfuckers on this planet such validation, unnecessary validation, and they're not even playing the same game I'm playing. You get what I'm saying? Like, you cannot be LeBron James, which I am. You can't be the Michael Jordan, which I am, and be dealing with like
Wally Zerbiaks.
And every time I step off the throne to give a peasant a chance, my hands get dirty.
What have I told you? You're up here. They got to meet you at the top floor.
Peasant behavior.
They
peasant behavior.
They got to meet you at the top floor.
It could not be this serious.
And for those watching, peasant behavior, what she's meaning by peasant behavior, she's not even talking about people's like monetary
financial. No, it's never about the finances.
It is never about the finances. It's about what you bring to the table, mentally, emotionally, like that. Like what your personality brings, who you are as a person, and these people been acting like peasants.
Right. You know, people really will play in your face.
Yeah.
And like, you could know that you're being played with, you know, it's just like, yeah.
It's like, ugh.
It's like I cringe, you know? And, you know, my thing is, I realize that the problem is me. I'm the problem. Because if I know from rip,
mm-hmm.
this ain't gonna work, what the fuck am I doing? Sometimes I just be doing shit.
Just doing it just to do it. And
I have no rhyme or reason. I have no why. That's just how I guess that's just how I feel. I don't know. And it's like, I'm like, it's really fuck me. It's of all the choices you make, it's really fuck me. But you know what? It's all good, honey. It's all good. I'm in my 40s. I'm looking like I'm in my 20s. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody knows I went through a horrific breakup about a year ago with the love of my life, which was one of the loves of my life, right? It was the hardest breakup I have ever endured in my life. Yeah. I mean, I love this thing more than, I think this was the second love I ever knew behind the love of my parents. This was my second love. And I got done so dirty.
That was last year. Oh my God. I don't know why it feels like so long ago.
It hasn't been a year.
It hasn't, but it's close. But it hasn't.
Close. It hasn't been a year. But this was my second love. This person was my second love. And facing a lot of hard truths about myself coming out of that, and seeing the evolution of, you know, shout outs to Matt, who said, like, once my sister looks in the mirror and remembers who we know who she is, and it's like, I popped out and showed.
Yeah. As soon as you look in the mirror and you remember it, it's like that.
The glow up was real. I mean, I went through the ringer, and I'm a person, I don't mind being vulnerable with my emotions and stuff like that. But that was one of top 5 hardest things I've ever had to endure, because the love was so strong and the love was mutual at one time. And then I was recently faced with a situation where I had to face them again for the first time since our breakup. And I feel like that person who I love doesn't even exist anymore.
You gotta.
It
It's
doesn't even exist anymore. It doesn't. The thing that I love, the person that I love, the way that I love them almost unconditionally to the point where I lost myself. I became exactly who that person wanted me to be, and that person worked me to the core. You get what I'm saying? And I was recently in a situation where I full on faced, I called it my devil, which was my ex.
yep.
And I faced it with I looked $1,000,000 when they saw me. I'm not going to give them a gender, because,
No.
we're here,
Yeah.
we're here, we're everywhere.
Uh,
Not gonna give them a gender, but
uh,
I saw them for the first time and felt nothing, which was it's not a feeling of hatred, not a feeling of disgust. When you're fully healing from something when you feel nothing. You don't wish
absolutely.
harm, you don't wish well, you wish exactly, you wish the parts that were good remain good and the parts that were bad doesn't exist. It doesn't, if it's not for me, it won't jive with me. And I feel like I'm finally at a point where I've turned the corner in my healing journey.
Listen, we all get there. We
A
all get
breakup
there.
almost took me out.
Man, you know what? You always find a way to lob something, and what we initially were going to talk about, I can talk about that myself. We're gonna get into what I said that me and you were going to talk about before. So, and we're not even going to hit the music or everything like that. Your sports show is bigger than sports, and the title of this episode is like, it is not a sports show, for sure.
It is not a sports
It's
show,
not a sports show.
but
You
yeah.
mentioned something about seeing an ex and just not feeling, just not feeling anything, right? Not wishing evil or anything like that.
Because they did me dirty, as you know.
Yep, I've been in that situation. Um, I've been in that situation. You guys are around for the situation, and for the most part, for many years, from the years of the situation, I've really decided to keep it on the hip and not really speak much about it, just out of respect. But I can relate to this, to where I was dealing with somebody, things didn't work out, and it was a really nasty breakup. Um, and it just spiraled out of control to the point where everything that I was feeling, it was coming out through my art, through my craft, through the show. It was in my face. It was in my personality. It was in like how I would speak to everybody. You were there. Matt was there. Pete was there. And you guys mentioned it to me especially when I was in it and then when I was out of it. And I remember the first time after one big argument that was had with me and said person. And about a year down the line or a couple year down the line from the argument, and I saw the person, and those feelings that I had after the argument or anything, they were just gone.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a me full of rage or hate. It was just like, I'm good. I'm good. And I earned that right to be good after who I was as a person, who I am as a person, who I was to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was. I definitely can relate to that, because like you got to be able to walk in your truth, but you also got to be able to walk past the bullshit that you was already into, that
Yes.
you was already in.
Yes.
Once you walk past it, once you're able to walk past it and not feel anything, you're over it.
Yes. Yes. And you said something that's really important about standing in your truth, right? And with truth also comes accountability, because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, sometimes when you know that you've given your best to a situation, no matter how tired, no matter how life was lifing, you know that you may not have loved this person perfectly, but you love them perfectly in their language for them, and it still fucks you up. That's a whole different type of a level of healing that people do not talk about ever. You know, we always talk about, well, he did me dirty. They did this. And there's always like a canon event that leads you to say, yeah, you know, this was why this happened. When you have no rhyme or reason for someone to just do you absolutely dog shit dirty, and it doesn't have to mean cheating. But when someone takes you to a low place where you forget yourself, that is self-betrayal. That is the biggest form of self-betrayal. When you are treating a person or a thing better than you are treating yourself, in moments where you could have been pouring into yourself, but you're pouring in, you choose to love. Now, that person may deserve a special place in hell, but guess who deserves a special place in self-reflection? You.
Yep. Accountability goes both ways.
Accountability goes both ways. Accountability is a double-edged sword because we are always quick to point the finger at a hurt.
Yep.
You did this. You did that. I was good to you. You did this. You did that. Right? But there's always warning. Let me tell you something. I'm not the most religious person in the world. Yep. I'm not a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in higher powers. As you guys know, I'm a little psychic. I be seeing things before they happen. I be predicting things before they happen. I'm a little psychic. You know, 500 years ago, I probably would have been burnt at a stake somewhere. You know, and labeled a witch, right? But God always gives you warning signs. Your God, your guide, your gut, your higher power is your intuition.
Absolutely.
You know, that is your higher power speaking to you in your language that only you and your higher power can understand, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing ever just happens in this life. It doesn't just happen when it comes to matters of the heart. Or there's always warning signs. The first time you were disrespected. Mm-hmm. The first this.
Right.
And then it becomes the second this, and you take it to the chin. Next thing you know, you being punched all in your face, and you like, what? And that's your intuition saying, remember that first time that you bent your core values to make somebody else happy? Remember that?
Yep.
And then by the time you sitting there like, damn, my heart is ripped out of his chest. And then a lot of the times people like you and people like me, we have spared the reputations of the people who have done such egregious things. And I don't know if it's because I'm too classy for that, but sometimes, like I said, motherfuckers be knowing what they do, but accountability is important.
Yeah. Accountability is super important. And you also got to be accountable for the stuff you did as well, not just like what you said in terms of allowing the bullshit, but also being part of the bullshit yourself, because nobody's a perfect angel in the relationship. Nobody's a perfect angel at all. Like
I am. No, let me tell you something. You poll any of my exes, right? You know what they were all. You know why they would say they're mad? Mm-hmm. Because I never gave them another chance to play in my face. They can never say she did this. They're like, either I don't fuck with her like that because, you know, they couldn't reciprocate the type of love that I was able to give, or I wouldn't let them continue to play in my face. They can't say she cheated. They can't say that she never showed up. No one can say that about me. I'm overqualified.
Absolutely. We have a special guest joining us in the lobby.
Well. It's Mr. Married Man himself. Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thank you. Mr. Sick and married, but yes.
Who gets sick after they get married?
No, I think
y'all had COVID?
No, between the changing weather and then my allergies acting up.
That feels a little COVID-y to me.
Yeah,
COVID.
no. Listen, you ever seen one of those COVID questionnaires? Yeah, you ever actually read the questions? It's very anti-Semitic. 'Cause every Jewish person I know wake up with at least 4 COVID symptoms every day. Are you phlegmy, achy, feeling a little back pain, little this, little that? You know, it's the truth. We're predisposed.
Oh,
He said it. He said it.
Technically, I didn't say it. Modi said it. Love the man. One of my favorite comedians. But anyway, no, yesterday came down with something last night. Allergy based. Today was a shit show. Just feeling like crap all day. So came home, took a nice hot shower, and kind of took a nap. And I forgot to set an alarm. And woke up and I was like, oh crap. So, but I'm here. Today we got your well wishes all the way from Vegas. I know you were working hard, doing some big things, and couldn't make it, but we got your well wishes through Dre.
Yeah, I don't know how y'all missed it. I wasn't coming. I got booked and busy all weekend.
You know what it was? I think the last time we had recorded a show. I think it was a week or two before the wedding, and I think you had said you were like, I love you because I'm flying out of Vegas just to go to your damn wedding.
That was way before that.
No, that was January before I got booked on another damn show.
Oh yeah, well listen, my concept of time between beginning of the year and the wedding was completely gone. My concept of time at the wedding was gone. I thought it was still going on. They were like, it's done 2 hours ago.
Crazy. Wonderful experience.
You guys look beautiful. You guys look beautiful. I was really, let me tell you something. I really did hate missing it. And I don't speak lies. So I'm telling the absolute truth. Everyone looked beautiful. You guys, I want to wish you and your wife, 100 years of happiness, love, grace, peace, prayers, communication, all of the values. You guys look so happy. I'd never seen you so happy. And they did FaceTime me while they were at your wedding, and I was already in full swing working.
Not during the ceremony,
No, but during the reception,
during the reception,
I felt the love.
Dre tried not to.
But I didn't because I followed the rules.
It's true. We did find out at the back end that I think like maybe 1 or 2 people didn't, so we're still trying to figure out who it was.
It wasn't Dre.
No, I know it wasn't Dre, but we're like, oh really? Okay, cool.
You guys deserve a lifetime of happiness, and I want you guys to have the happiest. What marriage ain't easy. I know, because I've been married. But at least you guys, you're not marrying the devil reincarnate.
Yeah, no, it's what's great about her is that her and I communicate about a lot of things, even when it's not great to communicate about certain things. I'm still growing as a communicator. One of my biggest flaws sometimes is I take communication sometimes very personally. So sometimes she'll be trying to communicate something to me, and I take it as like she's trying to like come for me or say something about me. And that's just programming that I'm still trying to break out of from just living with the families and people that I've lived with and gone through my life with. So, but she has shown a lot of patience with me and a lot of the growing that I've done. I mean, listen, there were a lot of times over these last 4 years prior to the wedding where, and I wouldn't have blamed her. She could have easily said, you know what, I can't do this no more. But she pushed through and she helped me grow. I'm a better person. I'm a better man because I am with her and because I have been with her. So that's what it's about. And we continue to grow and just learn every single day. I think that's the big thing. A lot of people kind of tend to think, okay, we made it here. That's it. We're done. We know it all. We got it all. We got everything figured out. And I'm just like, yeah, no. You know, there are things that we're still dealing with 2 weeks post wedding, where it's just like, oh wow, still kind of learning, still kind of figuring things out, still, making those moves. And one of the most profound things that somebody had told me, they were just like, understand that your partner in 5 years will not be the partner you're marrying today. And the partner you have in 10 years will not be the partner you have 5 years from now, and will not be the partner you marry today. Not to say that is a bad way, but that people are going to change and evolve over time. And it is important to continue to not only give them grace to do that, but also continue to learn them and continue to desire to grow with them. And a lot of people, they kind of like, they stay stagnant. So that's something that we are looking forward to. I knew she would look fantastic. That was never a question, but I cleaned up pretty well. I was like, damn.
Yeah, the suit, the color scheme was dope. I liked it. I liked it a lot. That green was chef's kiss.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad. Well, budget wise, it wasn't probably the best decision at the time. I am glad that that suit is mine. I didn't rent the suit. It wasn't a tux. That suit got custom fitted to me, and that suit is hanging in my closet. So that suit will make appearances every now and again, whether it's a pair of pants or the blazer or this or that. So that is that was, to me, something I'm very happy about.
Yeah, definitely the blazer. I can see you doing that. I can see you doing that.
Oh, you know me and my blazers.
Absolutely.
You know me and my blazers.
You change face like what?
Tell you should have seen I was on the dance floor. People were surprised.
You got to dance.
Yeah, people were surprised, and they were like, "Oh, this white boy can move."
Peter was dancing. I saw one of the toughest guys in my lifetime. I'm not gonna say his name, but one of the toughest guys in my lifetime. Huh?
You said say his name.
No, I did not. No.
Oh.
No. I should have did that at your wedding, and then I would have got kicked out.
Listen, the fact that I got away with the day of, so Tay, she had agreed to let the groom song on the way into the ceremony. I decided to come into Flair's music. What she didn't know is behind the scenes, I was trying to find a Flair robe. And I actually got one of the replicas that the shop had sold, the ones that looked really good. A talent friend of mine had one, and I was able to borrow it the day of, and she did not know. So literally, probably 30 seconds before the ceremony is about to start, I'm running down the hallway wearing a red Ric Flair robe to go out. The Woo hit came out. I did the whole entrance strut, entrance walk. Even we had the camera crew filming videography. The camera kind of came up to me. I did the whole Flair mini promo into the camera, took off the robe in the middle of the aisle, and then went up to the front without the robe on. The fact that I didn't die, and that was literally something she found out 30 seconds to a minute before we went live. Whoo!
Wow.
I got very lucky there. But she gave away the whole business in her vows.
She sure did.
What did she say?
Something to the effect of I promise.
No, Peter, don't bury yourself.
Oh no.
I don't. You know what? I don't remember what she said.
No, basically she just dropped a bunch of terms into one of her vows, which popped a couple of the other people at the wedding. She was like, I promise to, let you talk to me about this, and this, even though I have no idea what I just said. But she popped everybody because she threw out some of the insider terms and stuff. And so everybody was like joking around, oh, your wife out here killing the business. But, yeah.
Oh, man.
And then apparently I made everybody cry with my vows.
Made a lot of people cry. A gangster tear might have started to form. I had to hold it down. But the wedding altogether was beautiful. Everything about it was great. But we were talking about like different relationships and how it's kind of changed us and everything like that. And since I have you here, you being newly married, the question for you now is, what has changed you in the last 4 years of being with Shanice? What, like, if you had to pick one thing, and I'm pretty sure that's hard, but what is one thing that's changed you in the last 4 years? Because
Changed about me or changed me?
Change about you since being with your wife.
I've had to break a lot of old habits. And that I think is the toughest thing, especially when you're older, right? When you're older, I'm like, full transparency, I turned 38 right before the wedding. You know, and Tay, the only person in the world that's older but younger than me. So I turned 38 before the wedding. So we've been together since I was about 33 years old. Going on to 34 because we got together in February of 21. But when you're 30 something years old, it is very hard to break a lot of habits that you've been living with and doing for a very, very long time. It is very hard to change a lot of things about yourself that you believe are right, or that you've been told are right, or made yourself believe are the correct way to do things. Or it's just like famous fairy for, but that's how I do it. I remember one of our first arguments, and I say the word argument because that's what it was. We went to the laundromat. She was doing laundry, and I went to go help her fold. And I fold in a very specific way, and she folds very much in the retail way. So I'm over here folding stuff, and she's over here looking at me like, "Why are you folding things?" Like, no, that's not how you do it. You gotta do it like this. And I'm like, "Well, what's wrong with this? Like, there's nothing. It's folded." And she's like, "Well, I can't see the logo of the shirt. I don't know what shirt this is. I don't know what this is. I can't see it. So if I'm going into the drawer, I don't know what this is." And I was like, "Okay, but that doesn't matter. You just open it up and see what it is." And when I look back on it now, it's such an insignificant thing to argue about. You're muted, Tay.
But still, those are the arguments most couples get into.
Right.
It's not usually like knockdown, drag out over like core of that. Like, it's little things like that mean a lot. But that.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where instead of me being willing to listen and be like, okay, there is a different way to do this, it was more of like, well, why are you telling me to change something that's effective? And I think that's the hardest thing for people to understand, especially men. Just because something is effective, or just because something works, it accomplishes the goal, doesn't mean that A, it's the only way to accomplish the goal, or B, the best way to accomplish the goal. A lot of different people can do things a different way. Heck, even something so small as eating a plate in a specific way, right? Some people will eat their starch first and then their vegetable and leave their protein to last. Some people, myself, some people used to joke with me, like, you eat like you've been in jail, because I eat my protein first. I kill my protein first, and then I'll have everything else. But just because she eats, if we had a plate of rice, beans, vegetables, and chicken, just because she eats her rice and beans first, then her vegetables, then her chicken, and I eat my chicken, then my rice and beans, then my vegetables last, that doesn't mean that either one of us are right or wrong in the way that we do the thing. It both accomplishes the same goal. We cleared our plates.
Right.
But it's different strokes for different folks. And when you get married, you do have to be able to come to some sort of compromise about how things are going to be done for
us,
because it's no longer, well, I do things this way and you do things that way. If you go through your entire relationship or your marriage with I do things this way and you do things that way, you're just two single people in a long-term relationship.
Hey, two single roommates,
right? And
each other's turn.
when you want to build a successful marriage, it's about, understanding that there are going to be things that are going to change. And one of the things that's what's hardest for me, and I still struggle with it, even being married, is rectifying the fact that just because something is going to change doesn't mean that the way you did it was wrong.
That's right.
It's just, okay, this is a more effective way. Well, this is a different way. I grew up, I never had a dishwasher in my life.
You were the dishwasher.
Right. I was the dishwasher. And I used to do so many chores in my mother's house. My dad used to call me Cinderfella. But she's had the luxury and the privilege of having a dishwasher. She's washed dishes by hand, of course. But when we would load in the dishwasher, it was like, well, there's a right way to do it, a wrong way to do it. And I'm like, well, babe, I'm loading the dishwasher. She's like, no, baby, you do it differently, right? Or very big on the utensils go a specific way. This goes in a specific place. This goes here. This goes there. One of the biggest things I had to learn, and it's because I was wrong. This is when I was wrong. I was not explicitly taught growing up. My mother said that was the way to do it, but she never explicitly taught it. My mother was the one who taught me primarily how to cook. My mother and my grandmother on my father's side. So that's why when I started dating Shanice, I was able to impress her by cooking for her at my house, because we started dating still during somewhat part of lockdown. I was not aware that in Latin, Black, and Caribbean culture, cleaning chicken means more than just running it under hot water. So it was like, babe, did you clean the chicken? And I was like, yeah, I cleaned the chicken. I rinsed it under the hot water, took the little silver skins off, and, I cooked it. Okay, but did you wash it? And I was like, but she said, yes, I washed it. And it was this whole big thing to come and find out, you're supposed to take vinegar and lemon juice or lime juice, put it in a bowl, put the chicken in the bowl, wash the chicken, rinse it out, and then you cook it. And I'm sitting here like, well, no, that's not how you do it. I've been cooking chicken for 20-something years, and now nobody ever told me I was doing something wrong. So what do you mean? And so I had to make a decision, right? Like, do I want to have this fight? And do I want to have this, I'm right because I want to be right? And excuse my language, I just want to swing my dick around.
Whoa.
And be like, this is what it is. Or do I want to learn something new? And that was something that I had to learn. Because it was either that or just don't cook. I'm not going to cook for my wife because she's not going to trust me to prepare the food in a way that she's going to feel comfortable with. So those are the things I think anybody learns. Those are the biggest things that I've had to learn, right? That I've had to become more receptive to new things. There's also a lot of cultural things, right? Cuisine wise, I grew up eating a lot of red meat, a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of unhealthy carbs and starches and stuff like that, versus not necessarily being the way that she grew up in her cuisine pal. She does eat, red meat. She does eat this. She does eat that. She does eat all those things. But like for me, I'm a big ground beef guy. She's more of a ground turkey girl. She will have ground beef, but she would prefer ground turkey. And so I remember like there was that fight of like, well, I want this and you want that. And it was like, you just have to become a lot more amenable to things. And understand that things are going to change, and it's not worth it, right? It's just not worth a fight to have to go through those things. And if you're trying to, in today's world, our culture and our society, everybody wants to stand on business. Got to learn when standing on business is to your advantage, and when standing on business is just detrimental for the fact that you just want to stand on business and be heard. And like I said, a lot of people just want to, swing their what's around. A lot of people want to have a sword fight, women included. A lot of people just want to have a sword fight. And you can definitely have a
Call
winner.
me Zorro, motherfucker!
Right. You know, but you can either have a sword fight and have a winner and a loser, and understand that because you have to make that distinction, you are creating detrimental damage to your relationship in the long term, or you can learn the most important word in any relationship, and that's just compromise. Right? There's no winners and no losers. It's just saying like, hey, okay, cool, we do it this way. Okay, cool, we do it that way. Because when you have children, right, and you see this a lot of times, when you have children, what's the messaging your children are going to get? Oh, I do this with dad, but I do this with mom. Oh, I do this with this person, but I do that with this person, right? And so now you're raising a child that, especially if you're living under one roof, you're not divorced, you are a family. Now it's like, well, I got different rules for dad, different rules for mom, and now you raise a child that becomes combative because you raise a child that's like, well, I want to do this, and this parent doesn't let me do this. So now you have a child picking favorites, creating an unhealthy dynamic in the home. And so it's about creating that one set messaging. It's like, hey, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what I did. This is what you did. But what do we do in the present and then moving forward?
That's right. That's right. I love that. Actually, that was a very mature, very, very detailed and amazing take on, a newly married person. I mean, I got married super young. I was 23. So the insight that I have now, my core values haven't really changed, but the way in which I know more about myself has. And, like you said, it's like compromise is a really important thing, but you can't confuse compromise with compatibility, because sometimes people try to compromise themselves out of incompatible situations. Of course, that's not where you are in this, because you guys wouldn't have been married. You get what I'm saying? But I do think compromise is a good word. I do think that you can't compromise, like me and Dre were talking about before you jumped on. It's like when you compromise so much that you lose sense of self, that is betrayal to both the relationship and to you. So
Yes.
when you're talking about compromising on everyday things that people should compromise on, your views on, who's doing the chores, who's doing this, and, I may do it that way, but you may do it that way. That comes with, building a healthy relationship. But when we're talking about, like, also when it comes to compromise as a way of manipulation.
Yeah. No, if you compromising your entire being just to be with somebody, like immediately that's a red flag, right? Like what are you doing that you have to, everything about you is changing because of the, now don't get me wrong.
Happy.
Right. Don't get me wrong. Some people need a lot of change in their life. Right.
Of course. Do we call it change or evolution?
It's supposed to be evolution.
Right. There are a lot of people who do need that level of evolution. Now, if you're with a woman or a man who or non-gender specific individual who is helping you grow to the person you need to be and has the patience to help you get there, listen, or more power to them. But if it's something where it's like, well, to be with me, you have to do things this way or do things this way, or you just to make this person happy, you are constantly doing things. And as you said, that even goes so far as compromising your own core values just to be with someone. It shows a lack of sense of self. It shows a lack of self-confidence in yourself. Baby. And I've been there. Right? I've been there. I've been to the place where it's just like, yo, I've got no business dating this person.
We were just saying
because that's how I viewed myself at the time. I got no business. This person got no business dating me. But I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that I don't lose this person. Even if that meant no longer being myself.
I was in that situation. We're around the situation, and it sucks because it's like you want to make sure you're not doing yourself a disservice, and at the same time you're thinking, well, forget about me. What can I do to make this person happy? What can I do to fit this into this person's puzzle? Meanwhile, your puzzle has a bunch of missing pieces over there that you should have filled up yourself.
And if they're never willing to help fill your puzzle up, that's
Right.
You got to understand that is a big red flag, and people just completely bypass that.
Yeah,
I never had a relationship that was reciprocal until I was with Shanice.
That's
Right?
a big deal, and it's not even just financially.
Right.
We talk about like just consideration and compassion and just things that should be core values of relationships.
Right.
You know, because you will compromise your ass right into resentment.
Man, straight into resentment.
Straight into resentment. And
like, crash out.
Like crash out resentment.
Right.
And you know what I realized in your situation, Dre? I feel like, you know what happened, and Pete, you brought up a really good point. It's like, I have no business being with this person. I have no business doing this. And you know what that stems from too? When things are not just, we anticipate things to go catastrophically wrong in order for us to make a move. You know, usually it's like, you know what, this ain't working out. We're arguing all the time. We wait until we get to that point before we start action. You know, like we always, the red flags are always there. It's just some people like me think it's a circus. It's like, I want to dance. I just be doing shit.
But to be honest though, I had a shit ton of red flags when she started dating me. I think it also depends on how open is that person that has the red flags. How open to evolving are they? Because if they are open to growing and evolving, then those red flags could be something where it's like, okay, but you have to have a line. If these things aren't changing, if these things aren't evolving and growing, then those red flags, I cannot ignore them. But there are people, and I would say myself included, I came with a bunch of red flags. And
we all do.
She had the patience, and sometimes it didn't look like patience, but she had the patience to be there because I was willing to have conversations and listen and take feedback and implement feedback and grow and evolve. And the person she started dating 4 years ago is not the person she married 4 years later. There are still aspects of that person, but there are some people who are the same exact people today that they will be 10 years from now.
That's right.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem. And you know what's so crazy? And I keep going back to it. We be in situations with people that we don't like just because someone is there. We do this all the time. You get what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. Granted, you may have had all the red flags, and I'm gonna wrap this point up after this. Hold on. People be dealing with people that they don't like. It is easier to make slight tweaks and evolve with someone when you have the affinity for them and you want them in your life and you want them in your orbit. And these are things that are not going against your core values, right? But when you look at somebody and you're like, I don't feel, I'm just in this. A lot of men do that too, more than women. Well, women will stay longer. You know, women would stay longer in a situation that doesn't work for them than men would. But we be in situations with people we don't like. You know why you made those changes? You never say 2021 was a hell of a year for all of us. You know, it was a very transformative year. And she came at a time when you needed her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You needed that foundation. And you know what? Unlike a lot of unevolved people, you did not take your traumas out on her in a way that bred resentment. It allowed for you guys to slow burn and make your relationship work.
Yeah.
Because even at 33, I still feel like even if you had red flags in the relationships, your core values are still your core values. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are loyal, dependable. The good things that she saw in you are the things that we would see in you. And it's not that far. It doesn't delineate that far from who you are as a person. You get what I'm saying? And then it's like we all got some devils. It's like the devil that you want to dance with and the devil that you don't. So, thank you guys. Let us jump. You know, we do got to touch on a little bit of sports before we wrap, right? Can you guys talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on the whole Shedeur Sanders debacle last week that happened? I would save my thoughts for last, but I kind of want to, that's something that the league, everybody, the media has been beaten to death, and now was our turn to get the scraps to kind of to talk about it just a little bit. So tell me what your thoughts were. We'll start with you, Dre.
What happened was a moment where the league was trying to basically humble somebody. When the whole entire 30-something teams in the NFL, when all the teams in the NFL decide, except the Browns, all the teams in the NFL decide to not pick a player for the reasons that they chose not to pick them. It's kind of just like, are you for real? Like, now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders is a world beater, right? But he was better than majority of the quarterbacks outside of Cam Ward that were picked before him. He has tremendous upside. He is a student of the game. His father is one of the greatest NFL players ever.
It's not the greatest corner to me.
Right. The greatest corner, one of the greatest defensive ends ever, like in Deion Sanders. And the problem that they have with Shedeur is that he knows his worth. He is coming in as Deion Sanders of this generation. And the NFL does not want a repeat of Deion Sanders the way Deion Sanders was back then, because and for me, there's nothing wrong. Let the guy be confident in his skill, but you also got to let him back up his confidence as well. Y'all not picking him and now giving him fuel and motivation to be better. Y'all messed that up. Y'all messed that up. And he has a chance to play on the Browns. He has a high chance to play on the Browns. Their QB1 is not there. They have Joe Flacco. They have Kenny Pick Machine.
Year after year after year, this man still finds a way to get a job. I don't get it.
A way to get a job. They have Mr. Pick Machine. They have the guy they picked before Shedeur, and then they have Shedeur. 5 quarterbacks in that QB room. Let's say 4 of them, because one of them is going to be out for the season. He has a chance to play. The NFL was trying to prove a point, and honestly, what I think they did was now gave him motivation to be like, okay, I'll take this person. That's how I see it.
Go ahead.
I know what I'm going to come off as with my take on this. I'm not mad that Shedeur Sanders slid in the draft. At the time, I couldn't understand it. Sifting through the reports, sifting through what's come on. I'm not talking about just what people are tweeting out or putting the media out. I'm talking about actual football people that I trust, football insiders that get information that is verifiable and that I can trust and that I know would tell the truth. There are a lot of stories that we're hearing on the back end about how Shedeur Sanders conducted himself in pre-draft interviews, in meetings with teams that were uncalled for, and that exhibited an egotistical sense of self that was bigger than it needed to be. At the end of the day, you are still auditioning for a job. You could be the best player. You are still auditioning for a job. I don't think Shedeur should have slid to the 5th round. I will say that much. I think that there are quarterbacks that should not have been picked before him. I do think that was performative on the side of certain teams. I don't fault certain teams for drafting who they drafted. They should have had their reasons. If you don't have legitimate football reasons for drafting somebody over somebody else, then to me, what you're doing is performative. But I do think there were teams that legitimately chose not to draft him, even though he was probably the best player on the board at that time. But the one that kind of was the icing on the cake for me was this morning I read a report by Todd McShay. Todd McShay, longtime respected NFL insider. He specifically spoke to Shedeur's interview with the Giants. It said that during his pre-draft interview, Shedeur reportedly failed to identify errors in his mock playbook install as part of their process, which is a common practice among teams in the NFL for pre-draft quarterbacks. So essentially what McShay reported was that the Giants basically give you a playbook and there are errors within the playbook that they want to see if the quarterback will pick up on and say, hey, something's wrong here. And apparently Shedeur did not pick up on those intentional mistakes put into the install. And when they called him out on it during the interview, apparently the reaction was he was pissed off that they did that to him. And then he didn't have a great interview with Brian Daboll in private, right? So there's this whole thing of like, hey, you didn't catch these things, by the way. Did you notice this? Did you notice this? Did you notice this? And instead of him taking that, it was like, well, why would you do that to me? Why would you embarrass me like that? Why would you this? Why would you that? And it's just like, well, we do this to everyone. Can you pick up on these things? And there were multiple reports that came out that apparently there were reports that he sandbagged interviews for teams that he didn't want to go to. That he accepted interviews with teams, knowing he did not want to get drafted by those teams, went to the interviews and intentionally sandbagged the interview. There have been multiple reports about members of his team being very aggressive and nasty with NFL officials and team officials around different teams. And to me, the biggest red flag was what Deion did. I think it was a couple months ago, where Deion basically said, this is going to be an Eli situation. Right? Deion basically said something around the idea of like, we know where we want him to go. And if somebody else tries to grab him, you know, we're gonna pull an Eli. And I'll just be very honest. Shedeur's good. He's very good. The man did not win a national title. The man did not take a team to a national championship game. The man did not have eye-popping statistics that were like world-beating. So you are not at the level of an Eli Manning.
It's a different era, though.
It is, but you're not. I would, if Eli Manning was in the same draft as Shadur Sanders, I'm not having a conversation about Shadur Sanders being the number one quarterback.
But to be real with you, people didn't realize how important and integral Eli Manning was until the Giants won 2 fucking Super Bowls with him.
Agreed. But if you think about certain quarterbacks, right, there are certain
he was Peyton Manning's little brother until they won.
There are certain players that, again, I'm going to go back to this phrase. There are certain players who could swing their you-know-what's around, and rightfully so. Because you need me, I don't need you. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, people to a degree like a Reggie Bush, a Mario Williams, guys who were game-changing players. They changed the trajectory of a franchise, right? Imagine now that you are not that caliber of a player. You're good, you're very good, and you have a high ceiling, but you're going to swing your you-know-what around the same way. And there is a very fine line between confidence, cockiness, and egotistical thinking. Most people just think of confidence and cockiness, but you could be cocky and still be humble to a degree.
Like me.
Right. Because you know your worth. You know what you bring to the table, right? But you also understand that there are places that you can walk into that can do for you just as much as you can do for them. Right? It's not like you're going to walk into a small little company. Yeah, bringing me on is going to change your company. Bringing me on is going to take you from where you are. I can help scale you up. But there are spaces that you can walk into that be like, yo, me being here is going to be just as good for them having me in the fold as it is for me, because there is so much that I can learn and take from this situation.
Right, but it's still shut up and dribble in a way too, because at the end of the day, like I'm torn because I see what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like you do have a valid point about them being really ultra strategic as to where they wanted him to play and kind of trying to, bend the narrative to fix him. You know what I'm saying? But when the Mannings did it, no one better than I.
No, there were people. Not as much as Shedeur. Not as much as Shedeur. You're right.
It did not get this type of I personally feel that it was a mix of everything that you guys are saying. I just find it weird that we didn't start hearing those narratives until then.
Not until after he was drafted, right?
Right.
Because
so
if it was anybody else,
don't call me the racist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't call me the this. And damn well, the Giants have nothing to offer Shedeur Sanders. He will make them better. They made all the moves in the postseason to point to them signing him. Getting Jameis Winston, getting 2 old quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, and Russell.
And Russell Wilson, right? They flirted with the idea of bringing on Shedeur Sanders. Could it have been ego? Could it have been a little bit of that? The thing is, at the end of the day, he may not be a world beater or whatever, but the 5th round,
do you think that Shedeur Sanders
is disrespectful?
Do you think that Shedeur Sanders, in your professional opinion, strictly professional, Ted, do you think that Shedeur Sanders gives off the vibe as someone who is willing to learn and is willing to...
He's way more humble than his father is.
And maybe it's just everything we see that we get, but the perception that I get from Shedeur is of the mindset of, I'm going to walk in somewhere and I'm the reason they're going to get better. He doesn't give off to me the vibe of somebody who's teachable.
But the thing is, I don't think
he listens to his father.
I don't think he's I think that's generalizing, because at the end of the day, we're going by reports. It seems to me this is a young, talented man. The NIL has already shown him, NIL programs has already shown him that he could be a millionaire before he gets a degree.
And he was already a millionaire before.
He was already a millionaire before that. Let me tell you something. It brings to me that people do not like seeing young black men with privilege. I'm just going to be real. I don't like to use that term. I don't like to say it or whatever. I do think number 3, no. Number 5,000, absolutely not. That's what I say. I feel like it was a colluded effort. I think he was disrespected by that Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator's son.
Oh, 100%.
I do think that if there's ever a time when, I remember when Deion played. And people loved Deion Sanders. You know why? Because he was a part of winning teams. And he did it in a way that no one else was doing it. And people do not like to see a brazen black man flexing his muscle. Now, do I think that the fact that they narrowed themselves down to where they wanted to play was a bit braggadocious and a little bit more pretentious? Yes. But at the end of the day, like, they wanted to be like, this ain't the NBA. This is the NFL.
Yeah. I remember back, I think it was 2010.
You don't humble somebody like that. That was embarrassing. If I was Shedeur, I would have been like, I play another year in college.
I'm
I think in 2010, I remember the situation that happened with Myron Rolle, who earned a Rhodes Scholarship, had the ability to study at Oxford, attend medical school. He wanted to pursue neurosurgery. And, there was a lot of issue around something that you said, Tay, right? Like, which is like, at that point, he wanted to be in the NFL. But there was this narrative being thrown around, was like, well, he believes he don't need the NFL. The man's a Rhodes Scholar. The man finished a 4-year medical program in 2.5 years at Florida State University and was still a top safety at Florida State. My man was looking to secure his future outside of football because he also knew that the window to play football was small. And there were a lot of teams who passed on him and a lot of teams who disrespected him because he walked into the room saying, I want to be here. I don't need to be here. But he was willing to listen and learn. But there were a lot of owners who were bristled by that. With Shedeur, I do think it's similar. I do agree with you. He shouldn't have been a 5th round pick. But I do believe that Shedeur, in everything that we've been able to consume, whether it's his public appearances, whether it's stories that are reported and from legitimate sources, whether it's things that he says or his father says, it very much comes off as a young man who's not coachable. It comes off as a young man who already thinks he knows what to do and how to do it. And it makes me, I'll be very honest with you. If I was an NFL GM, I would worry that if I said, hey, we got to go left, and Deion said, no, son, you got to go right, that Shedeur would choose to go right other than left, even though his team said to go left. Like, I honestly do believe that about Shedeur.
It was a disaster. The NFL, and let me tell you something, the NFL is going to be on the wrong. The NFL was wrong for how they handled it. I'm just going to be honest with you. There is a way that was publicly embarrassing. And he, to a point where the president is now taking credit for getting him drafted. Because I heard that once Trump tweeted, teams were scrambling to put together a deal for him. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Shit is dumb. It goes back to politics. It's all politics. My thing on this is the last thing I'm going to say on it, because
it was collusion.
It's definitely, it was collusion, but two, Tay, you said this best, right? Like, they don't want to see a young black man who's confident, right? And in the NFL at that, right? In the NFL at that. In the NBA, they don't really care too much. NFL, it's an issue. Now, is Shedeur, I get Peter's point in terms of like actual on the field stuff, like what the Giants did. 100% get it, because other teams do it. Other teams do it, right? I think Shedeur's reaction to it was also, it wasn't the best, but I also think it was because of the whispers before the draft anyway. Because remember, he held his own pro day. They held his own pro day. They frowned at that. He didn't go to the combine, if I'm not mistaken, right? I can't hear you, Pete.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I don't think he went to the combine. They didn't like that, right? They knew he wasn't going to the draft. They didn't like that. They know how, his personality is in terms of on the field. They don't like it, right? People are gonna pretend till the cows come home that they love Deion when he first came in. For the most part, a lot of these people didn't love Deion until he got on the field. They loved the personality, but they needed to see that he could win first. And instead of them seeing let's humble him on the field first, they said, no, we're gonna humble Shedeur by possibly thinking that he might not get drafted.
That's embarrassing.
That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Like there's no reason that the president of the United States, which we all disagree with, like for whatever he's doing, who actually just made a funny the other day about him basically saying that, oh, well, your people are not, they're trying to change sides. Well, they got what they voted for. That's exactly what he said to them. But that's a whole different conversation. The thing is, it shouldn't have took the president of the United States to get an NFL player drafted, a college player drafted to the NFL. It shouldn't have. Collusion shouldn't happen. This is why Colin Kaepernick is not in the league right now. And the NFL should be ashamed of themselves. The whole end racism thing, y'all look racist as hell now.
It looks bad.
It looks terrible.
And if Shedeur doesn't perform, I'll be straight up, and I'm willing to eat crow. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is a franchise-changing quarterback.
You're going to be eating crow bad.
And listen, if I eat crow on that, I eat crow on that. I've said it about a couple of people. I've been right on some. I've been wrong on others.
Almost.
Right? I didn't think Cam Newton was a franchise-changing quarterback, but he was. Right? I did not think that Jamarcus Russell was a franchise-changing quarterback. He was not. Right? I said that oh man, I forgot who it was that drafted him. But I said that the Texans were going to regret not drafting Reggie Bush over Mario Williams. On the fence with that. I mean, Reggie.
No, say what you said about Lamar Jackson.
But Lamar was not drafted in a position to be a franchise changer. Right?
But he is one.
Here's the difference, right? No one drafted Tom Brady with the idea of this guy is going to change the franchise.
Right, but to be honest with you, people compare Tom Brady, this situation to Tom Brady's situation. And, we are, there is a way that you handle it, that you mitigate the PR damage, right? Because at the end of the day, the NFL was like, you know what? We're going to teach this boy a lesson.
Oh, you mean his nigga?
See, we didn't.
We're going to teach this boy a lesson.
I say his boy is worse than that. Y'all really want to be honest.
I'm not. And let me tell you something. I respect my race and my people too much to be using that word on air. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to this. All right.
So y'all don't think it's a Deion thing. Y'all think it's just strictly because he's.
I thought it was a mix. We had said. I don't think you were listening to the whole thing. But I said it was a perfect storm of all. Because Deion Sanders is one of the most beloved people in the league. You get what I'm saying? When he played. Especially when he was winning. You get what I'm saying? Deion Sanders had a music video premiere after the Super Bowl in which he won. You get what I'm saying? He was a cultural phenomenon back in the early 90s.
Yep. So
we're not going to. And then he became a reality star. He became a football coach and stuff. And I really think there are NFL coaches who are scared of their jobs who would have buried Shedeur out of fear that the father was coming with the son.
They're still going to do that, especially.
But I said it. To me, that's a problem. If I'm an NFL coach, if I'm an NFL GM, I need to be sure that. If we tell Shedeur Sanders, hey, this is the direction the team is going.
You can't tell me that Shedeur Sanders deserved that when you had Daniel fucking Jones and couldn't even throw a touch. He couldn't even throw a football. So you mean to tell me that the Giants disrespected a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, right? For Daniel Jones. Who could not. They had Daniel Jones last season. Who could not even throw a touchdown. So you mean to tell me that no one is called? This kid has been playing football since he was a twinkle in his father's eye.
No, they wanted Shedeur.
He's going to know how to turn. I don't think that this represents him being able to get. If you can listen to your father, and let me tell you something. When my father tries to coach me, I'm not going to listen to that motherfucker more than nobody else. You feel me? I just feel like I just feel like at the end of the day, they wanted to teach him a lesson. They didn't like how LeBron got his son in the league. You know what I'm saying? That
Thank
was
you.
part of it. They
Thank
didn't
you.
like the fact that the NIL was making these kids richer than they would have played in the league, so they didn't feel like they needed. I don't need to be drafted at this. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't take away the fact that this kid was disrespected.
I agree with you, but let me ask you a question, Tay. If Shedeur Sanders would have been drafted number 3 overall,
should have been number 1 or number 2.
I don't think about number 1. I don't think.
Nah, he's not better
As
than
far as
wasn't better.
quarterbacks,
He wasn't better than Cam Ward.
Cam Ward is number
then
1.
he should have been the second quarterback draft.
Okay, that would
I
be
still
number 3.
think that
he should have been the number 3 pick.
I
If
still
he
think
was
that
drafted
quarterback
number
that I think that the quarterback that the Giants drafted was not a bad pick either.
No,
It
Jackson Dart
wasn't.
did a lot of great things, but
I'm not.
wasn't a bad pick, but
Dart was a good pick. I thought Dart was a good pick. I'm not gonna lie. I think the Giants did pretty okay for this. To be honest with you, this is very Giants. But
I understand why they didn't get
It's
him.
very New York. It's very New York.
You mean to tell me that Vegas didn't need a quarterback? You mean to tell me that the Patriots don't need a quarterback? You mean to tell me that the Falcons don't need a quarterback?
Patriots don't like black quarterbacks.
You can't tell me that the damn Falcons need a damn quarterback.
They don't like
You can't tell me that Miami Dolphins really need a quarterback. You mean to tell me that these people? You mean to
They got
tell
Tua. What? He
what you
did
gonna
good.
say, Pete? What you gonna say?
Tua's not a bad quarterback.
If Shedeur's would have,
If the wind blow too hard, Tua got a concussion. Come on, stop.
Tua shouldn't be playing.
If Shedeur Sanders got drafted number 3 overall by the Giants, or let's say Shedeur Sanders would have been drafted in the top 10 by a team who needed a quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders turned into Ryan Leaf,
Oh God.
we would be. If he turned into a Ryan Leaf, or he turned into a Jamarcus Russell, or
Why is that the first person you go to though, Pete? Ryan Leaf though? Come on.
because Ryan Leaf was a number 1 overall pick and flamed out. He had all the hype. He was the perfect NFL player.
Yep.
And was drafted number 1 overall. Right? Granted, there were mitigating factors as to why he was as bad as he was, drugs. But
Damn.
at the end of the day, if
the Giants drafted Shedeur Sanders, let me tell you what would have happened, right?
if he would have flamed out,
They'd be on TV more.
ripped the Giants a new one for drafting Shedeur at number 3 and not looking at the red flags.
That's not fair. I'm gonna call a flag. I'm
what
calling a
red
flag.
flags?
I'm calling a flag on the play. I'm calling a
red
flag on
flags?
that. Look at the decisions that the Giants have been making for the past couple of years.
Right.
Obviously, and I've always been partial to Dabo. So for me to say this is a real fair assessment of the GM, Dabo, what they have, what they did. The only reason the Giants is not the worst team in the NFL is because of their defense. Dabo does not know what to do with offense. So let me tell you something. Shedeur, I think it was a strategic move because they know damn well the moment they get Shedeur in there, there's going to be birdies in their ear to get Schoen and Dayball up the fuck out of there.
Yep.
Well, he wouldn't have started. Shedeur wouldn't have started first year.
They should have never, but still, they should have never returned after that Saquon debacle over Daniel Jones.
No, I agree
want
with that. That was that, and that's not on Daboll. That's on Shane.
But it's on Daboll. Let me tell you something. It's on Daboll too. Because let me tell you, when Brady fucked up, you blame Belichick, who's looking crazy and senile right now. By the way,
because Belichick was the general manager. Because did you see his shorty embarrass him on the CBS interview? But that's for another time. Who's looking crazy and senile? But let me tell you something. Daboll, Sheen or Schoen, they were lucky to survive the last couple of seasons. You know that as well as I do, Pete. Oh, listen, Daboll. The reason why Daboll and Shane, especially Daboll, was going for a veteran quarterback. The reason why we saw them embroiled in the Aaron Rodgers situation and then signing Russell Wilson is because they knew they needed somebody solid for 1 year, right? Because if they pin Jackson Dart is not starting this year. Shedeur Sanders would not have started this year.
Of course not.
right? So at the end of the day, they knew getting a veteran quarterback was the way to try to stabilize the franchise, to try to build towards the next guy. I honestly do not believe that Shedeur Sanders would have been able to sit for the entirety of the first year, and we wouldn't have had a story a week of somebody who was upset.
They would have planted it. They would have planted it to ruin this kid's reputation. Let me tell you something. One thing I know is I have an ego. I have this. I grew up a very middle-class black girl, not a rich black girl, but a middle-class black girl. And I know what it's like for people to want to humble. And I say this all the time on the show. People want to humble you. You get what I'm saying? At the end of the day, why should he be humbled? Why? It was the NFL's way of putting their dick on the table and saying, young, flashy black man, you are going to get drafted in the fifth round.
That's so crazy.
Third? You thought you was third. Oh, really? Because up until that morning, people were saying he was third.
People were saying, yeah, we thought he was in the first round.
The 17th.
Everybody thought he was in the first round.
I thought at least first round.
Yeah.
I think, let me tell you something. They let it go on too long.
Way too long.
Now, the second round, okay. I would have been like, I'm good with that. Third round, that's when we start getting disrespectful.
That nigga got drafted in the fifth round. If you really want to be disrespectful, I feel like they're gonna do to Shedeur what they felt the Lakers should have did to fucking Bronny. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
And that's pretty much the size of it. Like, no, we're gonna minimize. You're gonna get in the door because of your heritage, right? But we're not gonna give you the same respect as your father. Why? Because we know what it's like to deal with your father. And we're not gonna make it seem like LeBron or his camp wasn't running roughshod in Cleveland or running roughshod in fucking Miami.
But you know the sad part about it is I was pro that because at the end of the day, the Mannings did it.
Yeah.
The Mannings did it.
Yeah, I know.
And to be honest with you, if Eli didn't bring my team two Super Bowls, we would be saying that we would have called him a bust.
By far, he was an average quarterback, but he had his
right
family's IQ.
Even still, they manipulated that whole first round. They manipulated that whole draft for Eli.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
You get what I'm saying? And it was okay because he was Peyton Manning's little brother, and Peyton Manning was the face of the league.
So
don't give me that bullshit. Don't give me that bullshit.
It's gonna be a great story. It's gonna be a great story if he shuts everybody up.
The fifth round is disrespectful. Let me say, Pete, everything you said would have been so super valid if he would have got drafted in the second round. Then I'm like, you know what? He deserved that. Yeah, you want to do the combine. You don't want to do the combine. You want to cherry pick your team. But the NFL does not have the shiniest reputation in treating talent of color on the same echelon. You get what I'm saying? Like, they don't have the best reputation of doing that. I'm sorry.
No,
all the racism, all the end racism, all the Rock Nation performances, all the woke performances we've had at the Super Bowl that make me sick because I know it's just posturing. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like if he would have got drafted in the second round, everything you said would have been valid. But the fifth round, you mean to tell me I think I would have got drafted in the fourth round?
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I've never heard of a player being like the offensive player of the year and he gets drafted in the third round. So it threw me all the way off. Once we got out of the second round and he didn't get picked, I was like, all right, this is 100. This is 100%. Oh, we're gonna humble this motherfucker. That's what it is. He's showing up to these practices and $1 million chains, and he's telling us what team he's not going to play for. Oh, we're going to show him. We're going to show him and his daddy. That's how I took it. But
show him and his daddy.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
They think this is the NBA. The NBA is too friendly to their players. They cave too much to what their players want. But this is the NFL, boy. And now go on to the Browns. No one gives a shit about the Browns
at all.
You know, I thought that Deshaun Watson was their damn quarterback. I forgot all about anybody else. That's the last time I talked about the Browns. But anyway,
he tore his ACL out there, didn't he?
In a massage parlor. But before we wrap, what did you guys think about the first round of the NBA playoffs? Let me tell you something. The Pistons were better than their record.
100%. 100%.
Pistons
The
also showed
Lakers.
the deficiencies of the Knicks that I talked about in the very beginning of the year, where the Knicks were going to struggle when it came to a tough rebounding team because Karl Anthony Towns, for as big as he is not an elite rebounder. And that is the one thing that a lot of people failed to see. Everybody just sees, oh, we got Brunson, we got Hart, we've got Karl Anthony. When Josh Hart, a man who should be a sixth man on most teams, and is starting for the Knicks, when Josh Hart is, I believe, your highest rebounder, that's a problem, right? Karl Anthony Towns is not an elite rebounder. He's not an elite defender. He's a great offensive player. He's a plus defender, but not a great defender. And when you have guys on Detroit that showed that deficiency, it's going to be very interesting. They're going to play the Celtics next. The Celtics don't exactly have a lot of great guys down low. You've got Al Horford, you got Kristaps Porzingis, but Porzingis knows his role, and Al Horford plays above his role every single time. And so it's going to be very interesting to see Horford and Karl Anthony Towns.
I think that Thibodeau's style of coaching just does not fit this team. I think that they need a bench. They run Brunson to the ground. Karl Anthony Towns, Cat does the best that he could, but he's spotty. I think other narratives that are coming out of the damn first round, while Detroit was better than their record, the Lakers were not.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about depth deficiency? It's definitely the Lakers right now.
All right, well, that's what happens when you make big trades like that. When you trade to and we talked about this in the beginning of the year.
They ain't giving nobody for Luka.
The Knicks making the trades. The Knicks making the trades that they made depleted their bench, right? So we knew this from the very beginning. The hope was that with Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, you could take some of the offensive load off of Jalen Brunson, thereby not having him to have to work as hard, and that obviously did not happen. The Lakers, listen, they made the playoffs. Congratulations. Moving on. I don't think they were a playoff team. They didn't show me playoff all year. We've got one more game to go right now. We've got game 7, Rockets and Warriors. Going to be very interesting if the Warriors get knocked out. Is this the end of the Steph Curry era? Is this the end of the Draymond Green era? They obviously made that big trade for Jimmy Butler to try to get them another shot at glory. So we'll see what happens there. The Clippers have played a lot better than I thought they were going to play. I honestly did not think the Clippers were as good as they've been this year.
Because Kawhi is actually playing in the playoffs.
This is true.
For now.
But you know what?
They're game 7 tomorrow.
I think the biggest deficiency the Knicks lost in the offseason, it wasn't because of a trade, it's because they had to sign one or the other and they chose OG and they let Hartenstein out the door for him to go to OKC. I think that was the biggest loss that they had because that was their rebounder. I'm not mad at Cat's contributions because I'm not gonna lie to you, without Cat, they were not winning that game 4.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so I can't shit on Cat for his defensive prowess. I mean, for Christ's sake, he was holding fucking Tobias Harris. Not much you can do. It's not like Tobias Harris is a post player or he's coming down low. Where it's gonna hurt more for a player like Cat is him guarding up or Al Horford or being double teamed by Porzingis, who is a stretch 5, who can come outside of the paint and guard a Karl Anthony Towns above the 3-point line. So
ask
Ken Horford. So yes, Boston is going to be overall a scary ass team for the Knicks to play.
It's Boston in 5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unfortunately that's what I see. That's what I see it being, because even Boston or Cleveland, the Knicks didn't win against either one of them all season.
Cleveland,
Knicks haven't beat a 500 team. Knicks haven't beat a 500 team the whole season. Truth be told,
but But yeah,
Cleveland looks scary right now.
uh,
55 points. I don't care who you are. I get you with the 8th seed, but
it's
55
Miami, bro.
points.
It's Miami.
Right now, I think we're looking at the possibility of a Cleveland and Oklahoma City finals because the Thunder looked really good in their series against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies played them pretty close, but still got swept. I think the fact that the Thunder have rest, being that the Nuggets and Clippers have gone 7 games, is going to be very, very helpful to them. I think they're better than the Clippers and the Nuggets. And then it's going to be the Timberwolves versus either the Rockets or the Warriors. And it really depends on if the Rockets win tonight. If the Rockets win tonight, they force game 7, which just gives the Timberwolves a little bit more rest. So I think we're going to see Oklahoma City versus the Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference finals. And it's going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics in the conference finals. And honestly, it's going to be, I think, the Eastern Conference Finals. If it is Cleveland and Boston, is going to be an incredible series.
In my opinion, I can't count out no team on the Western Conference. I can't. As good as OKC has looked, they have yet to face a challenge, and we all know how the playoffs are built. It's not like, oh, you get one game and you show your dominance. It's a chess game of a 7-game series. So I can't sit there and definitively say that Minnesota can't knock off OKC or Denver Nuggets can't knock off OKC. So and for lack of a better term, light skinned Jesus is still in the playoffs. So there's
he
that.
might not make it out this round right now. The fact they were up, they were up 3-1, and they allowed the Rockets to take game 5. And now
they were supposed to win the championship the last a couple years ago, and they did.
The Rockets
and they beat
right
that
now
Boston
up by
Celtics
5.
team. No, I hear you. I'm just saying I can't definitively say OKC is winning the Western Conference. I can't say that.
If I would go to Vegas right now, I'd put my money on OKC, and I'd put my money on.
Yeah, but you should have went to Vegas instead of getting mad. Like who as a massive wrestling fan books their wedding on WrestleMania weekend?
I didn't know. You know what it was? I did not think, honestly, and I said this before, I did not think that Mania would be booked on Easter weekend. I thought Easter took precedence over.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to have like the Holy Good Friday wedding. Oh, I finally get it. I'm a heathen, baby. I didn't even think about that. I forgot it was Good Friday.
I was testing gangster because everybody's like, oh, we don't eat meat on Good Friday. I was like, well, listen, I got a whole pig. I got a whole roasted pig.
Literally. It was looking at me the whole time. Literally.
Whenever I get married, everybody just got to bring their own food.
Wow.
I ain't gonna hold you. It's crazy that I was able to make it home and then make it to work.
Matt, how much weight did you gain at my wedding alone?
I'm not gonna hold you. I drank more than I ate.
Of course.
The open bar was good. The open bar was good.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Open bar was good for sure.
But the Knicks had me. I was standing up watching the last 3 minutes of that damn game. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Every time I say I can't do this anymore, here I am again. First round of the playoffs, going into the second round of the playoffs, and they're going to get knocked down in the second round town.
The problem is they're going to have to sign some bench players, and right now
they have to get rid of Thibodeau.
Yeah, but here's the thing: they're up against the salary cap, and you're gonna have to get rid of somebody. You're gonna have to get rid of Thibodeau.
I'm not gonna hold you.
Besides,
Boston got it worse next year. Boston's gonna have a worse term next year.
And let me tell you something: if Cam Payne didn't do that tip in after that Brunson missed shot, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. We'd be talking about Game 7.
Right, and I think honestly, I hate to say it, I think the low guy on the totem pole in New York right now is Mikal Bridges.
Wait. What are you talking about?
I mean, no.
He's the third leading scorer.
Yeah, but you're not getting rid of Brunson. You're not getting rid of Hart, and you're not getting rid of Cat.
They'll get rid of Hart.
Yeah, they was ready to trade him.
I didn't think they was gonna get rid of DiVincenzo.
I'm glad they got rid of DiVincenzo. The only person that I was sad about leaving was Hartenstein.
I was mad about DiVincenzo even more than I didn't care about Randall like that, but they're flourishing. They're
Nah,
flirting.
Julius Randle's doing good in the Timberwolves.
Yeah. But guys,
Why y'all in here? What's wrong? Y'all got y'all own room.
it's about that time.
Look, Daddy can't hold you. His neck hurt. Come on.
I didn't even realize Rudy Gobert had 24 rebounds in that game against the Lakers.
Yo, he was the only one that showed up. Shockingly.
Now, Randall scored 23. Randall scored
I'm
20.
talking about in the fourth quarter. He was the only one that showed up.
Yeah, Gobert scored 27 and had 24 rebounds.
Career high. Well, playoff career high.
Yeah.
Insane for the Frenchman. But
Still a bum. He's still a bum. You're not doing that. He gave everybody COVID.
But
Fuck him.
Jalen, let me tell you something. Jalen Brunson is a stone cold killer, though. I would say that.
No, he is. He is.
And he didn't push off.
And he's like a badass kid, too.
I think Brunson will go down if he has another 3 to 5 years like this. I think Brunson will go down as one of the best Knicks of the last 10 years.
Best Knicks of the last 20 years. I mean,
then go in the garage.
All right, guys. Dre.
Yes, there is.
So
on the deep freezer.
That is a wrap for the Yerrrr Sports Show, episode 178. Follow the Yerrrr Sports Show on all social media platforms at the Yerrrr Sports Show. Follow everybody on their own individual social media platforms. BK Matt at
BB is live.
BK Matt Yerrrr. BK Matt Yerrrr. You said what?
Did you read his caption?
Nope. Yeah. I see it now. Follow Pete at We Are Wrestling One. The Queen at Tavia Regina. Don't follow her though, because even though she put it up there, don't follow her.
I was just trying to be a good co-host.
You being a good team player, I appreciate that. And myself, the wise brother.
Said what I said. I said co-host.
Yeah, I called you my right hand.
All right. Co-host.
You don't want to be called the right hand. We don't know what he does with that hand.
I don't know. We don't know what you be doing with your hands. You carrying around all that ass.
Hey, man. Hey. Whoa.
Ain't nobody got more ass than my wife.
Nobody ain't asking.
Okay.
For the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado, who clearly has something on his mind. Boy, BK.
You might not be sniffling. You've been sniffling and snaffling this whole fucking. Don't get that woman sick.
No, I'm going literally right after this. I'm going to go take another shower. I'm going to put more meds in my system, and I'm going to go back to sweating it out like I was doing before the show.
I don't know what you mean by that. So,
pause. That was crazy.
For the Queen.
That was wild.
To have some husband-wife time, do it from behind because you don't want to get her sick.
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
No, that
was definitely a hey.
Hey, listen. For the Queen Tay, it is your boy, Big Baby, signing off. Peace.